Hey guys, this is Crow here with Crow Archery and Motorcycle Adventures, and today I wanted to talk to you about building arrows. Okay, and so building arrows is actually one of those things that can either be really fun or really frustrating. Okay, and the reason that I say that is, in traditional archery, you have to you have to tune the arrow to the bow. And the compound, you can just tune the bow to the arrow that you're shooting. But in trad archery, you're having to be a lot more down to the wire on building your arrow. And something I feel like out here a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to building arrows is what is the purpose of your arrow build. Are you going to go shoot 3D with it? Are you going to go hunt with it? Are you going to basically just have fun in your backyard? What environment will you be taking these in? Like I said, the purpose in my mind is very, very important because you can tune different spine arrows to your bow setup, but really the goal is to make that arrow fly perfectly straight out of your traditional bow. Okay, and so something that you're going to need to do is you need to determine your draw length, like your actual draw length. How far are you drawing that bow back? And the reason that's important is due to the fact that you got to cut this arrow to where I like to go at least 1 inch past where it will meet the riser. So, I want at least an inch coming out or sticking out from the riser. That way, if I put a broadhead on it, it's not going to come back and cut my finger or touch the riser or anything like that. So after you determine your draw length, which a really easy way that I found to do it is to get one of the Easton draw length indicators, put it on your bow, draw it back to your anchor, and then have one of your friends look to see where that measurement is, where it meets the riser, and then take an extra inch and add that to the arrow, and that be your around your final finished arrow length. Okay. Also, then we need to start talking about the spine of the arrow, which, if you're big into trad archery, you know what the spine is. It's basically how much force it takes to bend the arrow whenever it's under force and being pushed out of the bow. So you need to ask yourself, how many pounds are you pulling back after you determine your draw length? Okay, I'm pulling right at 57 pounds at my draw length with my current Hoyt Satori setup. And so with that, the spine that I've been using is 340, but now we go into a little bit more. How much weight are you wanting to run on the front of your arrow? Because the amount of weight that you put on the front will determine a lot. Because the more weight that you add to the front will actually make the spine on the arrow weaker. Okay? And so one general rule of thumb that I like to follow is I like to stick to the 10 grains per pound rule. With the Hoyt Satori, in the warranty, it talks about how you can't shoot anything under 8 grains per pound or it could damage the limbs and it will void your warranty. And to me, warranty is very, very, very important. Again, these things are not cheap. And so you want to keep the life of your equipment as long as possible, to get every penny that you've spent out of it. So sticking to the 10 grain per pound rule is what I like to do. It's above the minimum and it's a good weight for hunting. So, and in order for me to achieve that, I use 200 grain field points and broadheads with 100 grain brass inserts. And then I can always add a little bit more weight to the arrow with, a wrap or, different size feathers, your nocks, all of that. It's all important. So what I would do is I would ask myself, okay, what is the purpose of these arrows that I want to build? Okay, so if you're shooting 3D, realistically, you want to go a little bit lighter than, your standard hunting weight arrow for your trajectory and also a little bit extra speed to hurry up and get to that target before it starts dropping off. But as we all know, speed is not everything, especially in traditional archery. The greater the mass of something, it will penetrate more. That's important for hunting. But like I said, 3D, that part doesn't really matter. Just as long as it's flying perfectly straight and you are happy with your trajectory. So things you're going to need a Fletcher. In fact, I've got mine just sitting here next to me. This is a Bitzenberger. It's a right wing helical setup. I like the right wing helical versus the left wing, even though I'm a right-handed shooter. I know the left wing helical thing is very popular among right-handed shooters, but I prefer the right wing. To me, it's just preference. That's all it is. You're going to need some fletching glue. You're going to need, fletching glue around here, I can't really get it, so I just get like some super glue or something. I can always take the rest of it off of the shaft with like just a tiny little bit of rubbing alcohol or acetone, stuff like that. And then you'll need your inserts. I like the 100 grain brass inserts. Make sure that you get the right diameter inserts. I buy mine from Three Rivers Archery. I've also tried 50 grain inserts. I like those for like 3D and stuff like that. But you don't have to spend a lot of money on these arrows. Now, I like to spend just a little bit more in hunting arrow setups, just because it's a little bit extra peace of mind for me. My hunting arrows, which are Gold Tip Hunter XTs, they're bulletproof. They're fairly cheaper, but they get the job done, and they're actually really rugged. So I enjoy those. But what I've got here in my hand is a spine test kit. It's a Gold Tip traditional spine test kit. You can buy them from Three Rivers, Lancaster, Victory, all kinds of places that you can get them from. And the first thing I would do is find an arrow that you would like to shoot. Like these Gold Tip traditionals, they're great arrows. You can get the blemish ones for really cheap. And then from there, again, determine your draw length. I would go ahead and get an Easton draw length indicator. They're like $12 from Three Rivers. One of the best $12 I've ever spent. So it tells me that I need somewhere around a 29.5 to a 30-inch arrow. My draw length is 29, but I like to keep it around 29.75 to 30 inches. So now that you've determined your brand of arrow that you want to shoot, something that I find important is determining how much this shaft will weigh. After you go through and you do your spine testing and determine the spine of arrow that you need to be shooting, I like to look at the grains per inch, which should be marked on these Gold Tip shafts, like right here, GPI. This one is a 600 spine weighing at 7.8 grains per inch. So for me, this is too flexible for my bow. It's too light of a spine. I need a little bit heavier of a spine. So after you go through, what I would do is I would take all of these bear shafts and I would put your inserts and your field tips or broadhead. Well, don't put broadheads on until you're done bear shafting, but we'll get to that later. Take your insert and your field tip of how much weight that you want to shoot in the front, put it on all of these and shoot them. As you know, if you're a right-handed shooter and you shoot that bow and the arrow, here, let me point this direction. If I'm shooting this way and the arrow does this and it cocks to the left, that tells me it's too weak. If it cocks to the right, then that's too stiff. So what I would do is find something, you're looking for something that's a little weak is what you want to do. You want to find something that's a little weak, not like ungodly too weak, because if it's way too weak and then you start cutting your shaft to stiffen it up, the problem that you have is it's very easy to cut past where you need to be, where that arrow will end up being on the shelf at the tip, and you don't want that. You want that a little bit farther out from the riser. So once you do that, from there, go ahead and start bear shafting it. And then once you start bare shafting it, like I said, you're looking for a little weak, because what you're going to do is you're going to start cutting just in tiny increments at a time until that arrow starts to straighten out and be perfectly straight in your target. So I start at 10 yards, start cutting just a little bit to where it's still a little weak. Then I move out to 15, shoot it, and then it should still be a little bit more weak. And then I'll take tiny little increments off to where it's almost perfectly straight. Then I'll go out to 20 and I'll start doing that. And then I'll do my final micro adjustments from there. So at 20 yards, I want that sticking perfectly straight in the target by the time it's all said and done. And then once you add feathers to it, those feathers are going to help keep that arrow, straight. And when you've already bare shaft tuned your arrow, then you can only imagine how perfect that arrow is going to fly with your feathers on it. But if you plan on running a wrap, go ahead and put that wrap on while you're bare shafting. That way, the feathers, when you add those, it's only a couple of grains. Now, keep in mind, every time you add weight to the back end of the arrow, you're actually going to slightly stiffen the spine. So if you're going to use lighted inserts, go ahead and put them in there. Go ahead and put that wrap on there and shoot that as your bare shaft. And then once you put your arrows on, it should fly perfect the whole way like a bullet. Now, from there, another thing that you need to ask, I actually talked about this earlier, is the purpose of your arrow. The thing is, if you are out hunting, you don't want a lighter arrow just because it'll go a little bit faster. You want something that has enough knockdown power that when it hits that deer or turkey or whatever, it's going to actually hit it hard to get deeper and more penetration, because that is the ethical thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And you don't want to sit there and stick something with a super light arrow to where basically you just kind of penetrated its skin and then it stopped at a rib cage and the thing's running around like this with the arrow sticking out of it. That's wrong. You don't need to do that. So, but if you're 3D shooting, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just like I said, I don't like to go below 8 grains per inch. Normally or 8 grains per pound, I like to stick to the 10 grains per pound of draw weight. So for every pound of draw weight, you want 10 grains. So if you got a 50-pound bow, try to be at around 500 grains. 60, around 600 grains. Now, that to me is a minimum. That's just me. That is my peace of mind. I know that with that kind of weight, that's a good hunting arrow weight. And I will be more than confident and happy to go out into the woods and try to shoot at a deer or a turkey or any other game animal with that kind of weight. Now, you don't have to go off and spend a bunch of money doing this. You can sit there and get on Amazon and you can buy some carbon arrow shafts that are on the cheaper end, and you can build those, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're just going to be shooting them in the backyard. But the point is, you want to get your arrows as consistent and flying perfectly straight as possible, because that really will affect your accuracy. And then a lot of guys, what they do is they'll go to Walmart and they'll buy some, pre-made arrows, pre-cut, all this. They'll stick them in their bow and they'll start shooting them, and then they'll start wondering why they're not shooting that well. Well, it's because they haven't tuned the arrows to their traditional bow. And again, that is very, very, very important. So please take the time to do that. Nothing good comes easy. And bare shaft tuning and building arrows, to me, it's not easy, but it's worth it once you figure out how to do it. So again, things you're going to need. You're going to need a Fletcher. You're going to need to choose your feathers if you're shooting a traditional bow. You can do 4-inch, 5-inch. You got to decide if you want to shoot right wing helical, if you want to shoot straight, or if you want to shoot left wing helical. Because with the right wing, what it does is after it leaves the arrow, it wants to start spinning, and it'll keep it more of a helical turn, and it'll start spinning towards the right. Now, if you got left, it wants to spin to the left. Like I said, I just like the right ones. No, neither one is better than the other, in my opinion. Right now, it's just really popular to be on the left helical thing. that's fine. Do what makes you happy. If it works for you, that's awesome. Me, again, I like the right wings. So by the time it's all said and done, your arrows, again, need to match the purpose of what you are doing with them. So to me, like I said, I would start with determining your draw length. Determine how many pounds you're pulling at your draw length. Get a spine test kit of whatever arrow that it is that you would like to shoot. Determine the spine of what it is that you're going to be shooting out of that bow. From there, put your inserts in along with your tips that you want to shoot. And then after that, when you've shot them, you're looking for that little bit of weakness. From there, you slowly start to cut until it starts to straighten out. Just don't overcut it, because if you do, it's too stiff and you can't go back. The only way that you can weaken that arrow is to add more weight to the front end. Now, the thing with that is sometimes if you add too much weight, even if the thing is shooting really straight, the problem is your distance will be bad and it'll just start tanking after so far. So you want, to me, I like to find a good middle ground. If I can get an arrow accurately out to 20 or 25 yards, that's a good arrow for me. That's a good build for me. That is kind of the most window that I'm going to take shots on live animals with my traditional bow. Some people have done it farther, but most traditional bow kills are within 25 yards and under. Guaranteed. So again, take that into consideration. Now, 3D shoots and stuff like that, the ones that I've been to, the 90% of the time, the max distance is 20 yards. That's from what I've experienced. Maybe there's some other places out there that go a little bit farther, but from what I have seen firsthand, most of the time it's 20 yards and under for traditional bows. But again, you have to think about your purpose, your budget, what it is that you want to do with these, the environments that you're going to be hunting in or shooting in, things like that. It's all important because you want to be as accurate as possible. Now, from there, you can get everything you're going to need at Three Rivers Archery or Lancaster or any other shops that have a lot of traditional stuff available. Now, another thing I would suggest is getting a grain scale, something that will measure things in grains, because again, you're trying to fall within a certain parameter of how heavy these arrows are from your setup. You don't want to go too light because you can damage your bow. You don't want to go too heavy because you don't want just basically like shooting a rainbow. You know what I mean? But you want something that it's got a little bit of trajectory, but enough to where you can actually just look at what it is that you're shooting. You don't have to be aiming way high up. You don't have to be way far low. You can just kind of look, shoot, and it go and do what it's got to do. So another thing that you need to do after you get all of these tuned is you need to determine what kind of broadhead that you would like to shoot. Now, there are several options. You've got your single bevel, you've got your 2-blade, and you've got your 3 blades. And then there's even 4 blades out there. For me, I like to shoot single bevel. I've shot some 3-blade BPAs. I like those. They fly really good. They're easy to tune. That's a good starting point. But again, I like single bevel more. To me, there's just more benefits that outweigh the cons. They are a little bit more difficult to tune, but again, the benefits after you get it tuned is worth it. Like, you can't be mad about things that you're not getting based on work that you aren't doing. There's a channel called Ranch Fairy. He talks about that all the time, and he's absolutely right. I completely agree. So, like I said, you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money, but you do need to spend enough money that by the time that it's all said and done, you have an awesome, excellent flying arrow that will last you for a while. Because, again, it's not going to be cheap in the end, but it's going to be worth it because they can actually last if you take care of them. So, again, just take that all into consideration. If you like today's message, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification to be notified of any more videos that I upload. and throw in some comments about arrow builds that you've done, things that have worked for you, kind of your bow and arrow setup, stuff like that. I'm here to learn more myself, because the day you stop learning is the day that you're dead. That's facts. Either way, I love you guys. Peace.